Right. So this is where generally two different types of testings we have. So one is about manual testing. Whatever the manual operations are we performing, everything comes under the manual testing part. At the same time, when it comes to automation testing, majorly focusing on automation testing by using different tools where we have to test whether whatever the requirements we have taken were right or not, and whether quality of requirements were taken by the team or not. At the same time, is this requirements are specific enough to develop the project, or is there any else requirements, other requirements we want us to collect, right? So this is where the point. At the same time, it's even about it is about database designing, whatever we did. Right? So databases, it can be user interfaces, it can be coding. All these are comes under the automation part, whatever we do. So of course, there is some manual process, even automation tools will also be used. So these are the two differences. Now, when it comes to the manual testing, there are different things. One is about white box testing, we call it as. Second one, we call it as black box testing. Third one is called integration testing, acceptance, unit, and system testing. So these are the different testings which are involved under the manual testing part. Means if you want to perform any manual testing, all that. So we have white box testing, black box testing, we have integration testing, acceptance, unit, system testing, etc. All that. Now, what is meant by white box and what is meant by black box testing, right? So this is where we have to be known with, right? So let's understand what is white box testing first. Normally, white box testing is the one which majorly it's a kind of software testing, which majorly uses to understand the internal structure of a code so that we can evaluate whatever the functionality are we going to develop, because this is where generally white box testing, because white box and black box testing are the two major testing procedures which will be on the top of the testing part. We categorized in a high level note as white box testing and black box testing. So white box testing majorly focusing on, it's a procedure under software testing, because there are a lot of things: integration testing, performance testing, regression testing, unit testing, module testing, system testing, acceptance testing, right? So there are a lot of testing procedures which normally we follow. So among that, the first one is about white box testing, where it majorly focuses on understanding the internal structure of a code. Means whenever we are writing the code, there are different abstracts we use, classes, objects, interfaces, right? So functionalities, different functionalities and all, everything will be written whenever we are working on the application. So whatever the internal structure of the code are we going to write to evaluate whatever the functionalities are we developing in reference to the code, whatever we are going to uh, what is that we are going to develop. So for that, the kind of testing, whatever we will be perform is called white box testing. Okay, normally these are the testings which are usually done with the help of programming skills. This is where generally, whenever we are working on white box testing, it is always important to have an association with the programming team also, because even programming people will be there, right? So people who do the programming, right? So even programming skills, people whoever is having experience in the programming, so those people will also be involved in it, because when you want to understand about the internal structure of a code, so internal structure of the code will be evaluated by the coding team, because 100% all the testing procedures, whatever we follow, won't be done by a testing team 100% on their own, because there are some people who come from the testing background. The training will be given in such a way to them, especially in the organization level or so, on a particular procedure, right? So whatever the procedure they have initiated, so the same procedure they follow, and they don't develop anything, right? So because they don't develop any knowledge out of that after that. So there are possibilities, sometimes there is no guarantee that people who are in the testing will have a knowledge over the coding, because not everyone come from the IT background, right? First point. Second, not everybody are interested towards writing code, all that, right? So that is also one more point we need to be focused. So there are possibilities. Sometimes some people will be from the coding background. Let's say some people will be from the coding background. If the people are coming from the coding background, it will be easier for us to mention, or it is easier for us to initiate. But there is no guarantee that everybody will be from the from the coding background. Some people may be directly coming from the testing background. These people may not be having experience over the coding skills, all that. So it is always important whenever we are performing white box testing, as far as the testing procedure and the policy itself is concerned. Yeah. So policies and procedure itself is concerned, it is always important for us to have a person whoever is having programming skills experience, so that they will be knowing about whatever the internal structure of the code, because whatever the code which was written by someone or by themselves, they can clearly explain you, right? So what is the internal structure of the code, and they evaluate what exactly the functionality they were mentioning in terms of the logic. Because if you want to develop a logic, there is a functionality we have to write, right? So there is a functionality we have to write. For example, let's say we are withdrawing money from an ATM machine. Okay. What is the functionality here, right? So a customer can go into the ATM system. He can insert the card. Whenever they are inserted the card. It will ask us the instruction to give ATM PIN number, where an ATM PIN number will be given. So once the ATM PIN number has been given here, if it was right, assume that there are two conditions. One is if, second is else. If it is right, automatically it will show you the menu bar. If it was not right, it will tell you, right? So go back, your PIN number was wrong. So that please retype again. But there are some conditions applied. What was the conditions is that the wrong password can be accepted only twice or thrice or so, etc., etc. These are the preconditions, conditions. Now, whenever a person has mentioned and connect and press the withdraw button, they have to mention the money, right? So how much money they wants to withdraw. Here is a logic applied. What is the logic here? The money, whatever a person has mentioned on the screen, must be lesser than the account balance. Then only money comes. Money will come from an ATM machine. If, for example, money which was mentioned by a particular person was not lesser than the amount which he has account balance, he has wrongly, or maybe wrongly he has typed the money which was greater than the money which is there in the account. What will happen? Automatically we get a message called that insufficient balance. Am I right? Right, this is where generally logic has been applied, right? So logic will be applied in such a way. This is where generally coding will be written by the development team, developers, whoever is writing coding and all those. So this is where generally this programming come into picture. So having programming skills or programming knowledge is always important when someone is performing white box testing honestly. This is where generally this white box testing and all come into picture. So people who are from the programming area, having some programming experience and all, if those people were being with us, so that they will be understanding about the internal structure of the code, whatever they're writing, especially for a particular functionality. As I told you the functionality just now, as an example, this is all about this. This is where generally white box testing come into picture. Now, after white box testing, the next one is called black box testing. Majorly, this black box testing is the one which is usually allowed testing team to evaluate the functionalities of the software. But make sure generally this black box testing never get into the internal code structure, because internal code structure is not something required whenever we are working on the black box testing. Whereas in white box testing, that was the case. If you are working on white box testing, internal structure of the code, so that we can evaluate the functionality. For that, programming people who are in the programming side and all, right? So that sort of experience is always helpful for us to read and understand. But whereas when it comes to the black box testing, it was not the case. Block based testing, it's majorly focuses testing team to evaluate the functionalities of the software, but they don't require to go in internal code structure. Normally, this can be done in different levels. Either it can be done on the unit level or integration level or system acceptance level, because different units will be developed by us. So unit level testing can be performed. Or else integration. Integration means, for example, you are developing an application where both hardware and software is integrated. Let's say when we are working on point of sale system, both hardware and software are integrated. Let's say, for example, being a builder is scanning the product, right? So it's a hardware. Okay, whenever a product was scanned, automatically it was recognized, and you can see this product name on the screen followed by the unit price. How you got that? This is where generally software come into picture. Means we have written a logic for a particular scanning of a product. If some product was scanned, automatically it has to come and display on the screen. This is where generally software come into picture. Software which you cannot see, hardware which you can see. That's only the difference. So when you are interconnecting between hardware and software, because when you are developing an application, it's a part of hardware and software combination. This is where generally integration testing come into picture, right? Integration, because how you have integrated both hardware and software is what comes under this category. Next, system acceptance, because whatever the instructions we have given to the system, that we are giving in a language what system can understand. This is where system acceptance come into picture. The system acceptances in these levels, there are different levels, as I told you, like either it can be unit level, or it can be an integration level, or it can be system acceptance level. Whatever the testing it will be performed, this is where generally we call it as black box testing called as. So these are the two major ones which are comes under the testing. One is about black box test, white box testing. Second one about black box testing. White box testing majorly focusing on internal code followed by structure, where we can evaluate the functionality. But whereas when it comes to black box testing, it is not something of that sort, right? So which you can evaluate the functionality, but not getting into the internal code structure of the code which was written by the developers, all that. So this is what generally the two things. One is about black box, second is white box, and second is black box testing. This is all about the session today. If you have any questions, please go ahead.